In the heart of a peaceful village surrounded by golden fields and flowing rivers, stood a grand palace where Prince John lived as the only son of King David and Queen Eva. John had everything he could ever need: riches, fine clothes, delicious food, and servants who fulfilled his every request. Yet despite all his comforts, he was never satisfied. No matter how much he had, he always wanted more. One sunny afternoon, John strolled through the bustling village marketplace. The air was filled with the scent of fresh bread, roasted meat, and fragrant herbs. Farmers sold their crops, potters displayed colorful clay pots, and merchants boasted about their finely woven fabrics. The village was alive with chatter and laughter. As John walked past the toymaker's stall, he noticed a boy his age, Thomas, excitedly showing off a newly carved wooden horse to a group of villagers. They admired it, patting his back and praising the craftsmanship. John's chest tightened with jealousy. Why should a commoner receive so much attention? I am the prince. I should be the one everyone admires. That evening at the grand dining table filled with roasted chicken, fresh fruit, and warm bread, John sat in silence, pushing his food around his plate. His father, King David, noticed his troubled expression. "What is on your mind, my son?" the king asked. John frowned. "Father, why do some people have things I do not? I am the prince. Shouldn't I own the best of everything?" Queen Eva sighed and placed a gentle hand on John's shoulder. "My dear, happiness does not come from having more than others. It comes from kindness, from treating people with respect." John barely listened. His mind was already plotting ways to make sure he was the wealthiest, most admired person in the village. He didn't care about kindness. He wanted power. He wanted everyone to look at him the way they looked at Thomas. That night, as he lay in his silk-covered bed, he whispered to himself, "I will have more than anyone. No one will ever outshine me again." But John had no idea that his greed would soon lead him down a lonely and painful path. Determined to become the wealthiest person in the village, John began using his power as prince to control the village's resources. He ordered the farmers to sell their best crops only to him, forcing others to buy whatever was left, often at higher prices. He raised the taxes on merchants, demanding a portion of their earnings. Whenever a villager found something rare or valuable, John would claim it for himself, giving them barely anything in return. At first, John felt unstoppable. His storage rooms overflowed with gold and fine goods. He bought expensive clothes, imported rare spices from distant lands, and even built a massive mansion next to the palace just to display his wealth. Every morning he would walk through the village wearing his finest robe, expecting admiration. But the more he took, the more the people suffered. The farmers struggled to make ends meet, merchants could barely afford to stay in business, and families who had once lived comfortably now struggled to put food on their tables. One day, an old wise man named Master Peter arrived in the village. He gathered the people in the marketplace and spoke with a calm yet powerful voice. "Greed is like a fire," he said. "It may bring warmth at first, but if left unchecked, it will burn everything in its path." John, who had been passing by, laughed. "What does an old man know? Money is power." He walked away, ignoring the murmurs of agreement from the villagers. Yet deep inside, something unsettled him. He quickly pushed the thought aside. Wealth makes a man great, not kindness. But he was about to learn how wrong he was. John's greed continued to grow, and so did the misery of the village. With heavy taxes and fewer resources, people struggled to survive. The once lively marketplace became quiet. Merchants left for other villages where they could trade freely. Farmers could barely afford to keep their land. Even John's friends began to turn away from him. One afternoon, he saw Thomas in the village and approached him. "Look at what I've built, Thomas. No one in this village has as much as I do," John boasted. But Thomas shook his head. You take from everyone but give nothing back. You have gold but no friends. Is that the kind of life you want?" John scoffed. "I don't need friends. I have wealth." But he was wrong. The loneliness soon became unbearable. His palace was grand yet empty. His table was filled with food, yet no one joined him for meals. Then disaster struck. A severe drought hit the village. The rivers dried up, the crops withered, and hunger spread. The villagers, desperate, pleaded with John for help. "Please, Prince John, you have so much. Help us feed our families." But greed had hardened his heart. "I worked for my wealth," he said coldly. "Why should I give it away?" That night, as he lay in his golden bed, he heard whispers outside. Looking through his window, he saw villagers packing their belongings. They were leaving. His kingdom was crumbling and he was powerless to stop it. The next morning, John walked through the empty village. The once busy streets were silent. The marketplace stood abandoned. Even his own servants had left. John still had his gold, but it was useless. He could not eat gold, he could not drink riches, he could not buy back the people who had once trusted him. Panicked, he rode to Master Peter's small hut at the edge of the village. Falling to his knees, he pleaded, "Tell me what to do. I am rich, yet I have nothing." The wise man sighed. "You built walls of gold, but burned the bridges of friendship. Wealth is not measured by what you own, but by what you give." John finally understood, but was it too late? Determined to fix his mistakes, John opened his storage rooms and distributed food to the villagers who remained. He lowered taxes and welcomed back the farmers and merchants. He worked beside them, rebuilding homes and planting crops. At first, the people did not trust him, but over time, they saw his change was real. Thomas forgave him. The village began to thrive once more. One day, as John stood in the marketplace, he saw children playing, families sharing meals, and merchants laughing. For the first time, he felt rich, not because of gold, but because of the people around him. Sitting under the old oak tree, John looked at Master Peter. "I was foolish," he admitted. "I thought success was having more than others. But real success is having people who stand by you." The wise man nodded. "True wealth is not in gold, but in kindness, trust, and love." From that day forward, John ruled with wisdom and generosity, and though he still had riches, his greatest treasure was his people. The moral of the story: greed may bring riches, but it will never bring happiness. True wealth is found in kindness, generosity, and the people who stand by you. When we chase wealth at any cost, we may end up losing everything that truly matters. Think about your own life. Are you valuing people over possessions? Are you building bridges or walls? How can you make sure that, like Prince John, you choose people over possessions? Let us know in the comments. We love to hear your thoughts. If this story inspired you, like it. Let's spread the message that true success is not about what we take, but what we give. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.